Okay, here we go. Chapter 5 review. Here I am talking you through everything. Answers are here as well, but just little hints and tips that you need to have stuck in your head for tomorrow. So when we solve systems by graphing, you graph both lines, use your y equals mx plus b. When it's in this format, slope-intercept form, here is your y-intercept. Hit that, put it on, and then use rise over run. Go up if it's positive and run right, or go down if it's negative and run right. Your answer, if they do not cross, is no solution. If they do cross, you write down where they cross. So these are pretty straightforward. Make sure on 3 that you notice this little negative. It's small, but it's there. This one, they were not, neither one of them were in slope-intercept form, so we subtracted x to get it over to this side, so now it's minus or negative x. We added 2x to move it to that side, so now it is positive 2x. Graph those, they will cross. If they don't cross, you say no solution, like we said before. These both were a little tricky because particularly when you started at 1 and you went rise 4, run 1, you were out of graph space. So remember, you can always, I just went 1 off the graph, but you can always go down and left. This is still a positive slope. If you read this line from left to right, it's definitely going uphill. And that's about it for graphing. Be careful, graph those. We've graphed several times this year. Go ahead and flip it. This one says to solve by substitution. So you are going to, on number 5, this confuses some of you, choose one and circle part of it and then put an arrow. You also could have circled this and put an arrow up here. Then this line would be exactly the same, except for this part would be on the left and this part would be on the right. Variables on both sides undo the lesser variable. Once you get x or y, whichever one you happen to get first, you will plug it back into either original equation. I chose the top one to get your second coordinate that you're looking for. All answers go in x comma y format. Same here, circle substituted in, circle substituted in. On all of these, it says check your solution. So especially on your test, you can plug, say on this one, plug this in for x and this in for y to both equations to make sure that it works. If it works in both of them, you're correct and you move on. If it doesn't, you're not, and redo. Sometimes it's best just to erase. All right, moving on down to these types. Solve by elimination. If you have the same coefficient out front, you subtract. So like here, both of these y's had a -1 in front of them. The way we learned it is we rewrote everything in the second equation by multiplying by -1. So I made this a -2x, a positive y, a -3. And the reason we do that is because then we can add. When you add, these two are eliminated, and you get your x, plug it back in, find your y. Same thing here, 2, positive 2 on both, that's the same. Rewrite the second equation after you distribute a -1. That will have x be eliminated, solve for y, plug it back in, solve for x. You can always check. This one, the 2 and the -2 were opposites, so we're ready to add on that one. And that's the way elimination works. Right here I put study. Use your 5.4 notes or the chart sheet that we had, because this says without graphing, determine whether the system has one solution, infinitely many, or no solution, and explain. You must explain. So immediately when they have different slopes, they are going to intersect or cross, so you say one solution. Your explanation is simply different slopes. When they're both in slope-intercept form and you notice they have the same slope, you also need to check the y-intercept. If the y-intercept is also the same, it's infinitely many solutions. On this one, these also had the same slope, but different y-intercepts. So those are going to be parallel lines, which is no solution. You must explain, study, 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 memorize. Different slope is one. And then you have to understand same slope. You have to also check the y-intercept. If it's the same, infinitely many. If it's different, no solution. Flip it. Solve each. So this one was set up to use substitution. So I circled this, subbed it in there. I got -6 equals 7, which is not true, or that's false. So that is no solution. This one we were set up to use elimination. Everything was opposite, so everything canceled, leaving me 0 equals 0, which is definitely true. So infinitely many. And then this one, since it does say solve, we do go ahead and get the solution on this one. So I substituted in, found the x, plugged it back in for y. Definitely getting 1 comma -1 is one solution. As usual, on 17 and 18, we are just writing the equations. Ooh, one thing that I should have done that I did not. I should have written over here that A equals the number of adult tickets and C equals child. I did not define my variables. Bad me. So when you're starting these problems, that's the first thing you should do, excuse me, is pick letters that you're going to use as your variables and then write down what they are. That'll definitely help you write your equations. Here's an item total, and then this whole equation has to do with money. 12 bucks times the number of adult tickets and 9 bucks times the children's tickets equals 72 bucks. This one, again, I should have defined my variables. C is for chicken, P is for pigs. The amount of animals was 13. What kind of animals? Chickens and pigs. And then legs. There were 40 legs total. 2 for every chicken and 4 for each pig. So that's your scoop on word problems and writing equations. And then these last ones are reinforcing your checking skills. So there are 2 ways to do this. You could just work them. This one was set up nicely to add and to eliminate by adding, and you got your answer. This one was set up nicely for substitution. Your other option, I said over here, or you could guess and check, but it must work in both equations. So you could, since there's a 2 for an x here and a 2 for an x here, you could try plugging in a 2 over here and seeing whether 1 or -1 works. If neither of those, then you have to check one of these. Kind of the same here. Since there's a -2 for an x here and here, you might plug in and see which one works correctly. Really up to you. Sometimes I think it's easier to just solve, but you could guess and check if you're stuck and just use your calculator. So that's it. Study, 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 study. Good luck on your test.